Thanks for checking out this video. This is the 1973 installment of the 1970s horror movie Superlatives series I'm doing with your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete. His channel is in the description of this. So, reminders, finish this video out, hear my picks, go over to his channel, hear his picks, then come back to my channel, go to the community tab, and vote there for whose picks you like the most or who had the best justifications, whatever makes sense to you, because, friendly competition thing. Also, while you're on my channel and on his channel, make sure you subscribe because we greatly appreciate that. Join our nerdy horror communities because we're both putting out great content and we would love you to kind of join up with us. Also, hit the notification bell button for both of us and then you'll know when we're putting up new videos. Anyway, gonna jump into my picks here for 1973. I'm gonna need to explain some of them in depth a little bit just because it may be ones that you hear and are just like, why did you pick this for this? So I'm giving explanations, okay? Hold off until I explain with your reactions. But this will be an easy one. Most amazing film from 1973, obviously, The Exorcist. Didn't want to pick The Exorcist just because of my hate for William Friedkin, but you can't deny what a masterpiece of a film it is, especially from a horror perspective. It's still scary. That's the thing. A lot of films from this time period, from the 70s, that were, crazy and scary back then, aren't necessarily crazy and scary anymore. But The Exorcist still is because it's so well done. The story is disturbing. The way it was executed is disturbing. It is scary. It is suspenseful. The effects look amazing. Now, I hate William Friedkin, and I hate the fact that he treats his actors poorly and has a gigantic, massive ego. But separating that from the film is amazing. It's iconic, obviously, and everyone knows it. So it's an easy pick. That's why The Exorcist is my most amazing film of 1973. There really is nothing else I could have picked over it. There's one other film I kind of considered, but I was like, no. Now that shows up in another category, though. So moving on to my best so bad it's good film. This one is going to be Horror High. Now, if nobody's seen Horror High, it is a lot of fun. It is a bad film. There's terrible acting. Terrible acting. Characters, wacky, weird characters, especially the janitor in this. The whole premise of Horror High is it's like a take on the Jekyll and Hyde story, which actually the film starts with kids in a high school, watching something about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And that's exactly what the film is about. It's about this nerdy kid who's not very popular, into science, comes up with a formula, and he turns into his own version of Mr. Hyde, and kills people at the school. That's what it is. Does it sound fun? Does it sound engaging and interesting? It is. It's not a well-done film. Like I said, the acting is horrendous, but it is a lot of fun, and there's some pretty fun, cool kills in it, especially considering with how kind of like crappy and low budget it looks, including one that involves a paper cutter and one that involves some acid. Highly recommend this film if you have not seen Horror High. It is a lot of fun, and I know there's actually a sequel, Return to Horror High, in a later year that I'll probably have to go ahead and watch, but highly recommend Horror High. It is my pick for best so bad it's good film for 73. Now moving on to my most WTF film. A lot of people, there's a film that's probably going to be an obvious pick for most WTF, which would be The Baby. I am not picking The Baby, and you will find out why later. But for my most WTF film, I am picking Malatesta's Carnival of Blood. This is streaming on Shudder, I think still at the moment when I'm doing this video. It is weird. It is super weird. The set design in itself is the weirdest thing I have ever seen. I'll talk about that in a second though. Let me set up the premise of it. A kid goes missing at a carnival. So the parents and some other people decide to get jobs there to kind of infiltrate the carnival, see what happened to the kid, why he disappeared, because the mystery has not been solved. Find out there are a lot of wacky characters going on there. There's a lot of wacky stuff going on there. And the design of this carnival and the bowels of this carnival are weird. Wacky characters, weird, bad acting. The set design. Okay, let me tell you. I have never in my life seen so much bubble wrap in a movie. That is one of the most WTF things about this film for me personally. Although there's a lot of WTF about this, especially like where the story ends up going. I'm not going to spoil it. I do recommend watching it because it's wacky and there is an enjoyment level to it. But just the designs of like the weird bowels of this carnival are like a weird kind of like trippy nightmare. Really, really. And there's so much bubble wrap, not just bubble wrap, but red colored bubble wrap. I don't even know where you get red colored bubble wrap. It's so weird. It's so odd, but it's kind of an enjoyable flick to a degree. So I found myself saying WTF to myself a lot while I was watching this film. And while the baby would be a very appropriate pick for most WTF, because it certainly is, I am choosing Malatesta's Carnival of Blood. And if for nothing else, this film is worth watching to get to the very end to see what's actually going on at this carnival. Check it out. So that is my pick for most WTF. Best gore. I am going with George A. Romero's The Crazies, which I just saw for the first time. It's been on my list for a long time to get to. Pretty solid film. I'm going to put out a review for it as well. Actually, I may already have put out a review prior to this, so you can check my channel for that. But I'm not doing best gore because there's like elaborate, amazing gore, which Romero's films ended up becoming well known for, especially with, well, I mean, the Night of the Living Dead, obviously, for its time, a lot of kind of shocking gore. Day of the Dead, obviously, really upped the ante with gore. But this one doesn't have that level of like single kills that are really super gory. There are a few good and quite gory kills in it, though, especially like people getting shot, like someone gets shot in the side of the head, and like the way the bullet hole looks and the blood coming out looks good. Someone wearing a gas mask getting shot in that, and just like how it like busts and the blood's all over the place. Like there are some of those good things, but I'm mainly picking it for just the pure volume of gore that goes into this. There is blood all over the place, and it mainly is because of the story, which the story, if you don't know, is basically a pathogen gets loose in a town and it makes people crazy. The crazies. It makes them violent. So they start going around trying to kill people. So there's a lot of fighting going on between soldiers and these Trixie, which is what the pathogen's called, Trixie infected citizens there, and it gets bloody. So that is why my pick for best score is going to be The Crazies by George A. Romero. Now moving on to most unique, and this is the other film from '73 that I actually, for a little bit, considered for most amazing film. That is The Wicker Man. Now, I'm picking it for unique because it helped define folk horror films to a degree. It's one of the unholy trinity, which is The Blood on Satan's Claw, The Wicker Man, obviously, and Witchfinder General, starring Vincent Price. Now, The Wicker Man has an amazing Christopher Lee in it. Amazing Christopher Lee performance as Lord Summerisle. What's so unique about this film for me is just like the paranoia that it ends up creating, the mystery that it creates around it, and it's one of the most interesting, enjoyable folk horror films I've ever seen, and I'm sure a lot of people would also co-sign that. But the ending, like everything is just slowly, slowly, slowly building towards this amazing, shocking, unbelievable ending that plays out in grand fashion, and you just can't believe it to a degree. So just how this film comes together, how folk horror never really did it on this scale or made it feel quite like this prior to the film, is the reason that I'm going to make it my most unique pick. Now, I don't want to say much like story-wise. I mean, it's really about a police officer who goes on assignment, or I think he takes it upon himself to try and find a missing person in this very small, secluded town. And when he gets there, people seem a little bit weird, things seem a little bit off, and he's trying to find this person and just is having a hard time getting anywhere. That's all I'm going to feed you if you haven't seen The Wicker Man. It is a must. I love, love, love that film, if for nothing other than the fact that Christopher Lee's performance is wonderful. But there's so much wonderful stuff with that film. Pause for horror hydration. So that's why, most unique, The Wicker Man. Now let's get to the most overrated. Now this is one I'm really going to have to explain because it is a film I like, and it's a film a lot of people like. Obviously, why it's overrated, because it's highly rated, and I think it's too highly rated. This is a giallo film, and it is Torso by Sergio Martino. Like I said, I do enjoy this film. I like it. The brutality of the kills in the film are really, really, really well done, and I do recommend people watching this film. But the reason I think it's overrated is I see people in the giallo community talking about it so much. It gets talked about to death, and it's very slow. It's an insanely slow film that actually, I'm going to be honest, gets kind of boring. There's way too much boring plodding along space between the actual interesting stuff in the film and the kills, and there's just not a whole lot of story actually there. So really all it's about is the kills and a little, the tension and the danger, which they do a good job when that's going on in the film, and the reveal of who the killer is, which there's a good misdirect in this film. And that's why I say, like, I like this film, but I think it gets way too much love. It's way too overhyped as far as a giallo film goes. So that is why Torso is my pick for most overrated, even though I like it. Now we're getting to my most underrated. And people are going to be shocked potentially to find out that my pick for most underrated is The Baby. Now, obviously, like I said, this could have been picked for most WTF because it is extremely WTF. I mean, if you don't know about this film, it's a must see. It is literally about a grown man who has been kept by his mother and two sisters as mentally a baby. He doesn't even have a name. He's just referred to as the baby. And a social worker comes and she starts working with him. She has a very big interest in what's going on here, his development and all that type of stuff. And I don't want to ruin anything past that, so I'm going to stop saying it. It is a wacky film. There is a lot of WTF going on here, especially with the way the baby gets treated by his family. It's something. The first time I watched this film, I was very uncomfortable because of the performance that was done for the actual character of the baby. It is very uncomfortable with how kind of spot on man baby it is. It is tough. But after I got through it the first time, I've watched it now like 4 times, I think, somewhere in that area. It grew on me every single time. And I realized this actually is a good film. Most people just view it as a so bad it's good film, which I considered for that category briefly. But so many people think it is so bad it's good or WTF. But if you really watch it, if you really paid attention, it's actually a pretty good film, especially because the twist, I guarantee nobody who sees this film for the first time sees the twist coming. I sure didn't. It is nuts. It is over the top, but it's good. It plays out really well. And the performances in this film are actually quite good. It's just there's a lot of wacky, crazy stuff going on in it. It really legitimately is a very good film. It's very well executed. I actually really like it, and I am planning to purchase it because it's out on Blu-ray through Era Video, just so people know if you want to purchase it yourself. So, shockingly, for a lot of people, my pick for the most underrated film in 1973 is The Baby. It's a must if you haven't seen it. So those are all my picks. Let me know your thoughts. Go ahead and put it in the comments. Also, let me know your picks because we like hearing that type of stuff. Like I said, check out Uncle Pete's channel, watch his video, then come back here and vote on who you think had the better picks or justified them better or whatever. And like I said, subscribe to our channels, hit the notification bell buttons, all that stuff. Thank you for engaging in this series with us and the one from the 80s because we've been having a lot of fun. It's been a great time. But thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And until next time, keep it brutal.